Right now, in a small room, lit only by the glow of a phone screen, there is a little stick figure sitting on the edge of his bed. He is not moving. He is barely breathing. And he has been staring at the same unsent message for almost 11 minutes. Look at him. His thumb is hovering. His shoulders are pulled up around his ears. On the screen in front of him is a single short sentence, typed out, deleted, typed again, and now just sitting there, waiting. And the thing that has completely frozen this poor stick figure, the thing that has turned his whole body into one tense little knot, is a question so enormous, so impossible, that it has stopped time itself. Should he put a period at the end or not? Because if he puts a period, maybe he seems cold, maybe he seems angry, maybe she reads it and thinks he is done, finished, shutting the door. But if he leaves it off, maybe he seems careless. Maybe he seems like he does not take her seriously. He has now spent more mental energy on one tiny dot of punctuation than he spent on anything else all week. And underneath all of it, way down at the bottom of this ridiculous little crisis, is a feeling he does not even want to admit to himself. He is terrified. He cares about this person more than he feels comfortable caring. And caring, it turns out, is the most frightening thing in the world. So, instead of sending the message, he does what he always does. He closes it, he opens a different chat, and he sends a meme. Because a meme is safe, a meme is funny. A meme says nothing, and therefore, it can never be rejected. He puts the phone face down on the blanket, lets out a long breath, and stares up at the ceiling, feeling like a coward. And that is the moment everything changes. Because as he lies there, defeated by a dot, a strange thought drifts into his mind, the kind of thought that feels too big for the room. He wonders, has anyone ever felt this before? Not just other people right now, in other rooms, in other cities. He means before. Long before. He wonders, did the first humans feel this? Did the ones who came before everything, before phones, before words, before any of it, did they ever lie awake, terrified of caring too much about someone? Or is this strange and tender misery something brand new, something only modern people invented? He does not know it yet, but that single question is about to take him on the longest journey of his life. Because the floor of his little room begins to dissolve. The walls fade to gray, then to nothing. The bed beneath him softens and falls away. And the stick figure, eyes wide, arms flailing, finds himself tumbling backward, not through space, but through time itself, falling down through the years like a stone dropped into a deep, dark well. 1,000 years, 100,000 years, 1,000,000. The numbers blur past him as he falls, faster and faster, until at last he lands, with a soft thud, on warm, dry grass, under an enormous and ancient sky. He sits up slowly, brushing himself off. The air smells different here, green and raw and alive. And as his eyes adjust, he realizes he is not alone. All around him, scattered across a wide golden savanna, are other stick figures. But they are not like him. They are hunched. They move on their knuckles half the time. They are shaggy and wary, watching the horizon for danger. This is not the dawn of civilization. This is something much, much older. This is roughly 3.5 million years ago, long before anyone would call these creatures human. Our stick figure stands up, cautious, and immediately notices something that makes his chest tighten. There is one enormous figure in the center of the group, a huge male, far bigger than everyone else, broad and heavy and dominant. And around him are many smaller figures, females, kept close, kept controlled. When another male drifts too near, the big one rises up, beats his chest, and roars, and the smaller male scurries away. There is no tenderness here. There is no choosing. There is only size and fear, and one powerful figure taking what he wants through sheer intimidation. Our little stick figure watches this, and his heart sinks. Is this it? He thinks. Is this where I come from? Is love just a story we made up to dress up something that was always really about who is biggest and scariest? But then, as he stands there in the long grass, something happens that he almost misses. One of the smaller stick figures near the edge of the group, slowly, carefully, rises up onto two legs. Just stands up, straightens its back, lifts its head, and looks out across the plain toward the distant trees, standing tall, balanced, upright. Our stick figure feels a shiver run down his spine, though he cannot say why. He has just witnessed one of the most important moments in the entire story of who we are. He has watched an ancestor stand up, and without knowing it, that simple act of standing up was the very first physical step on a road that would lead, after millions of years of struggle and failure and trying again, all the way to a nervous little figure in a dark room, frozen over a text message, terrified of caring too much. The journey of love had just begun, and our stick figure had a very long way to walk. As our stick figure watched that ancestor stand tall against the wide sky, the world around him began to shift and blur once more. The grass rippled, the light flickered like a fast sunrise played 1,000 times in a row, and he understood, somehow, that time was moving forward now, carrying him gently down the long river of the years. And as it moved, he noticed something changing in the figures around him. The giant dominant males, the ones who ruled through size alone, were slowly, generation by generation, getting smaller. Not weak, just less monstrous. And the gap between the big figures and the small figures was quietly closing. Our stick figure tilted his head, confused. Why would that matter? He wondered. And then, as if the world wanted to answer him, a soft, glowing thread appeared in the air, connecting one male figure to one female figure standing nearby. A thin, warm line of light just between those two. Our stick figure stepped closer and stared at it in wonder. In the world he came from, nobody talks about this, but the size difference between males and females is one of the clearest signals of how a creature loves. When the difference is enormous, it means one ruler and many mates, violence and control. But when the difference shrinks, when male and female grow closer in size, it means something else entirely. It means pairs. It means two figures choosing each other, staying with each other. And right there, in front of his eyes, the threads were beginning to form. Not everywhere, not perfectly, but beginning. The world surged forward again, and our stick figure tumbled along with it until the savannah gave way to a rockier, harder land. The sun beat down, and here he found a new kind of ancestor, taller, leaner, walking fully upright now, with clever, careful eyes. This was a far more capable creature. And our stick figure arrived just in time to watch one of them do something that would change the meaning of the word love forever. One of these upright figures, a male, picked up a sharpened stone and walked away from the group, out toward the dangerous open country alone. Our stick figure followed, nervous, glancing left and right. The land out here was full of teeth. There were shapes moving in the tall grass. There were predators with patient eyes. And yet the figure kept going, hunting, searching, risking everything for hours. And then, finally, the figure found food. A good amount of it. Enough to matter. And here, our stick figure leaned in close, because this was the moment. The hunter did not simply sit down and eat it all himself, the way a selfish animal would. He did not bring it back and drop it for the whole group to fight over. Instead, he carried it, carefully, all that long and dangerous way home, and he brought it directly to one specific figure, one female, and her small child beside her. He set the food down in front of them, just them, and stepped back. Our little stick figure stood very still and felt something rise up in his throat that he did not expect, because he understood what he was seeing. This was not just feeding, this was a choice. From a cold and selfish point of view, it made no sense for that hunter to risk his life and spend his strength on someone else, unless that someone was not just anyone. Unless there was an understanding between them, however quiet, however wordless. You are mine, and I am yours. I went out into a world that could have killed me, and I came back, and I brought this for you. Our stick figure pressed a hand to his chest. Do you understand what this is? He whispered to himself. This is almost 2 million years old. This little moment. A figure going out into the dark and the danger and coming home with something just for one special person. This is older than language. It is older than fire. It is older than nearly everything we think makes us human. And it is, when you really look at it, the most romantic thing imaginable. It just happens to involve a dead animal. But our stick figure decided he would not judge. He thought of his own world, of someone showing up at the door with a warm bag of food after a long day, of the quiet way that says, I was thinking of you, I took care of you, and he realized, with a strange ache, that he and that ancient hunter were doing the exact same thing. He sat down on a warm rock and watched the little family eat together in the fading light. The female reached out and rested a hand on the hunter's shoulder, a simple touch. And there it was again, that warm, glowing thread, brighter now, stronger, connecting the two of them across the gathering dusk. The child looked up at the hunter with wide, trusting eyes, and the hunter, exhausted from the long and dangerous day, gently touched the top of the little one's head before settling down beside them. Nobody spoke. There were no words yet to speak. But our stick figure could feel the whole shape of it anyway, the quiet promise hanging in the air between these three small figures. We are together. We belong to each other. I will go back out into the danger tomorrow, and I will come home to you again. Our stick figure felt his eyes sting. He had come on this journey half expecting to find that love was a lie, a pretty word we painted over something brutal. But here, at the very beginning, in the dirt and the danger of the ancient world, he was finding something tender, something real, something that chose to give instead of take. He stood up, wiped his face, and turned toward the horizon, where the years were already calling him onward. There was more to see, so much more. And the threads of light were everywhere now, glowing softly in the deep blue dark, like the first stars of a sky that had never had stars before. The world spun forward once more, and this time, when it settled, the air was cool and the light was soft, and our stick figure found himself standing at the mouth of a cave near a wide gray sea. The figures here were different again, closer to him now, standing fully upright, quick and bright-eyed, hands busy and clever. This was roughly 100,000 years ago, and these ancestors were about to do something that had never once happened before in the entire history of life on this planet. Our stick figure crept closer and watched a figure sitting by the cave wall, bent in deep concentration over something small. He squinted to see. The figure was taking tiny shells, no bigger than fingernails, and carefully, patiently, piercing a hole in each one, and then threading them, one by one, onto a thin cord. Our stick figure's mouth fell open. He was watching someone make a necklace. The first jewelry, the first decoration. He watched others nearby rubbing soft red and yellow mineral powder onto their skin in careful patterns, shaping themselves, beautifying themselves. Why? Thought our stick figure, baffled. Out here, in a world full of hunger and predators and sickness, why would anyone waste precious time and energy just to look beautiful? It made no sense. Until, slowly, it did. Because to make yourself beautiful is to send a message. It says, look at me. I am clever enough to imagine something that does not yet exist, and then make it real. I am skilled enough with my hands to craft something lovely out of nothing. I have enough strength and safety in my life that I can afford to spend an afternoon on beauty instead of survival. I am, in short, someone worth choosing. Our stick figure thought of his own world, of people getting dressed up before a date, fixing their hair, choosing the perfect photo, and he laughed softly, a little stunned. The shells had become diamonds. The red powder had become makeup. But the feeling underneath it was exactly, perfectly the same. And then something happened that stopped him cold. The figure with the shell necklace finished it, held it up, looked at it for a long moment, and then walked across the cave and placed it gently around the neck of another figure sitting by the fire. A gift, given freely, chosen for one person. Our stick figure noticed that the shells did not even come from this beach. He could see, somehow, that they had traveled, passed from hand to hand across enormous distances, hundreds of miles, carried through the world by people who valued them, which meant this was not just a pretty thing. This was a treasure. And someone, 100,000 years ago, had received it and understood, in whatever wordless way they understood things, that it meant, I saw this and I thought of you. Our stick figure watched the shells travel in his mind's eye, hand to hand, valley to valley, group to group, across rivers and ridges and whole stretches of unknown country, until at last they came to rest here, around the neck of one beloved person by one small fire. Each pair of hands that passed them along had understood that these little shells were worth something, worth keeping, worth carrying. They had meaning. They had value. And all that meaning, gathered over all those miles, had been poured out as a single gift for a single person. Our stick figure had to sit down. He could not look at it for too long without his chest aching. The world's very first I saw this and thought of you. He had spent so long believing that romance was something modern people invented, something that needed poems and candles and pretty restaurants. And here it was, raw and ancient and absolutely real, a gift given by firelight in a cave at the edge of the sea. But just as his heart was getting soft, a hard old thought crept back in, the kind of thought he had heard his whole life. Sure, a voice in him said, but wasn't it really all just the strongest one winning? Wasn't it just the biggest, toughest figure taking whatever they wanted while everyone else lost? Isn't that what nature really is? And as if to answer him, the cave around him filled with the cries of a newborn child. Our stick figure turned to see a mother holding her baby, and he watched. And he understood something he had never understood before. A human baby is born almost completely helpless. It cannot walk, it cannot cling, it cannot feed itself, it cannot do anything at all for years and years. He thought of other animals, a baby deer standing within hours of birth, a baby ape clinging to its mother within days. But this little human needed someone to do everything for it, for an impossibly long time. And one parent, alone, could barely manage it. The math was brutal and simple. A child with two parents working together, one protecting, one providing, one carrying, when the other was tired, that child was far more likely to survive. And suddenly, our stick figure saw the whole picture clear as daylight. This changes everything about who you would choose. If you are raising a child this fragile, you do not just want the biggest, strongest figure in the group. What good is the strongest one if he wanders off the next morning? No, you want the one who stays, the one who comes back, the one who brings food when you cannot hunt, who carries the load when you are exhausted, who protects you, not in one dramatic fight, but quietly, faithfully, for years and years. You are not choosing strength. You are choosing reliability. You are choosing loyalty. You are choosing what we might as well call commitment. Our stick figure stood up slowly, the truth settling into him like warmth into cold hands. This was the deepest root of all. Not just attraction, not just wanting, but attachment. That strange, almost irrational pull toward one specific person, the feeling that this one figure, out of all the figures in the world, had somehow become irreplaceable. Love, it turned out, was not the opposite of survival. Love was a survival strategy, the most beautiful survival strategy that life had ever invented. But a question still burned in our stick figure's mind, the biggest question of all. Yes, the behaviors were there, the food, the gifts, the staying, but did they feel anything? Was there real longing inside them, real tenderness, real heartbreak? Or was it all just cold machinery, bodies following instructions with no one home inside? The world turned once more, gently now, and carried him to a place where he could feel an answer beginning to form. He found himself standing beside a sleeping figure, and a soft light seemed to glow from within its head, illuminating the shape of the brain inside. And a quiet understanding came to him. By this point in the journey, these ancestors had brains essentially identical to his own. The same deep emotional core. The same machinery for attachment, for fear, for joy, for grief, for longing. The very same chemicals that flood through a person today when they fall in love. The rush, when you see the one you want. The warm, deep bond that ties you to someone over years. The fierce protectiveness you feel for the person who is yours. All of it was already there, fully built, fully running. The hardware existed, which meant the feelings almost certainly ran on it. They felt it. They truly, fully felt it. And then the world brought him to the moment that broke his heart wide open. He stood at the entrance of a cave, in a harsh and frozen land, and inside it lay a figure that made him catch his breath. It was an old one, and it had clearly lived a brutally hard life. One arm hung withered and useless, injured long ago. Its body bore the marks of old broken bones, healed over. One eye, he could tell, had long gone dim. This was a figure who could not hunt, could not gather, could not carry, could not do any of the things that this savage world demanded in order to stay alive. And yet, Our stick figure realized with a jolt this figure was old. It had lived for many, many years after all those injuries. Years and years, in one of the cruelest environments imaginable, as someone who could give the group almost nothing in return. How? Our stick figure whispered. And then he saw them, the others, gathered close around the old one, bringing food to its lips, keeping it warm, sitting with it, choosing, day after day, year after year, to spend their precious, hard-won resources keeping alive a figure who could never pay them back. This was not survival of the fittest. This was not cold calculation. This was care, for the simple sake of caring. This was love that lasted long past the point of usefulness. And our stick figure, standing there in the freezing dark, finally let himself cry. Because he understood now, beyond any doubt, that these were not strangers. These were not unfeeling beasts. They were family. They were us. And if they could love like this, then love was not a flower that grew at the end of human history. Love was the root. Love had been there at the very beginning, holding everyone together against the cold. He wiped his eyes and walked on, and the world showed him love's harder edges too, because it wanted to be honest with him. He saw flashes of jealousy, a figure tense and watchful when a rival drew too near to its partner, the old emergency wiring firing hot, and he winced, recognizing the feeling far too well. But then he understood the other side of that same coin. The very wiring that makes a person jealous is the same wiring that makes them faithful. The same fierce attachment that flares up at a threat is the thing that makes you stay and protect and devote yourself to one person through everything. So, the next time you feel that uncomfortable, irrational pang, our stick figure thought, just know you are running a program that is hundreds of thousands of years old. You are not broken. You are just very, very ancient. And then, just when he thought the journey could hold no more wonders, he heard it, a sound, drifting through the dusk, a single, pure, trembling note. He followed it to a fire glowing against the dark, where a figure sat holding a small flute carved from bone, lifting it to his lips and playing into the night. Our stick figure stood frozen in the shadows, listening as the melody rose and curled and floated across the flames. And on the other side of the fire sat another figure, watching the player with shining eyes. Our stick figure understood at once what was happening. He was watching someone serenade someone else. He was watching music do the thing that music has always done in every culture that has ever existed, reach across the impossible distance between two nervous, hopeful, terrified hearts and say what plain words never could. I feel something. I made this for you. Do you feel it too? Tears came to his eyes again, but this time he was smiling, because he saw, finally, what all of this had been building toward. The standing up. The food carried home through danger. The shell necklace given by firelight. The two parents choosing each other to raise their helpless child. The care for the broken old one in the freezing cave. The flute song across the flames. These were not separate facts. They were not a list. They were one single story, the oldest love story there is, told across millions of years. And he understood the most astonishing thing of all. Love did not come at the end, after cities and writing and comfortable lives gave people the leisure to feel things. It was the other way around. Love came first. The bond between two people, choosing each other, building something together, drove our ancestors to invent better ways to talk to each other, which became language. It drove them to make beautiful things, which became art. It drove them to care for their partner, and then their children, and then their whole community, which became society itself. Civilization did not create love. Love created civilization. Love is one of the very things that made us human in the first place. The world began to lift him up now, carrying him forward through the years, faster and faster, past everything he had seen, the fire and the flute and the shells and the savannah all blurring together into one warm, glowing ribbon of light. And then, with a soft and gentle landing, he was back. Back in his small, dark room, sitting on the edge of his bed. The phone still face down on the blanket beside him. He picked it up. The unsent message was still there, waiting, just as he had left it. The little crisis of the period, the terror of caring too much. But the stick figure was not afraid anymore, because he understood now what he was really doing. He was not being foolish. He was not being weak. He was doing something ancient, something so old it has no beginning, something every single one of his ancestors had felt, all the way back further than imagination can reach. Each of them had been terrified too. Each of them had cared more than felt safe. And each of them, through ice and hunger and danger and loss, had found the courage to reach across the fire anyway. That was the only reason he existed at all. He looked at his message one more time, and he smiled. The period suddenly did not matter even a little. What mattered was the reaching. So he took a breath, the same breath that Hunter took before walking into the dark, the same breath that Figure took before lifting the flute, and he pressed send. Then he set the phone down, lay back, and looked up at the ceiling, feeling something warm and steady settle over his whole body. He had cared. He had let someone matter. And that, when you really think about it, after 3.5 million years, is still the most romantic thing there has ever been.